Erica and Sharon are sisters who began their grief journey in 2006 when Erica's 10-year-old son Austin drowned. Together, they participated in a grief education program, were so moved by this experience, they studied and became specialists so they could help the brokenhearted find recovery. In 2015, tragedy struck their family once again when Erica's oldest son Donovan was killed in a motorcycle accident. Erica and Sharon are committed to sharing their experiences of love, loss, and healing through this podcast. Now your grief specialists, Sharon and Erica.
Grief changes your body. Grief changes you physically. You will notice things within your body that are changing as you're grieving. You will experience things in your body that you didn't experience prior to the grief. So today we're talking about how grief changes you in your body and your physical stature.
Yeah, there were things happening that I didn't even know were part of grief. I didn't know it would get you physically. I thought it was just, sadness and, talking about, your thoughts. I didn't know that there was a physical component to grief, which
Right.
I was not happy when I experienced it.
Right. So the first thing that happens is that this overwhelming sadness, this loneliness, and for some people, it can feel like anxiety, right? This overwhelming anxiety, and then depression. So the sadness can also be associated with depression. So you have these overwhelming feelings, right? That's what happens first. That's what happens immediately. And also shock. So shock. So those are the things that you think would be on the list. Hey,
Yeah. You expect that. Yeah, you would expect
this
that.
This is on my list. It's definitely. Okay, let's start with the first one. You can experience heart problems. First of all, your heart is broken. Your heart aches. Your heart absolutely feels. Your heart is a muscle, but it's feeling the emotions, all of this emotional pain from your current recent loss and all of the losses you've experienced over a lifetime all come flooding through into your heart at one time. The heart doesn't forget. It remembers everything that has happened. And so even though some of your losses from the past may not be in the forefront of your mind, your heart is starting to experience that pain over and over again. It can be taxing and heavy on your heart.
I didn't have physical symptoms after Austin passed away, or if I did, I wasn't as in tune to them as when Donovan. So everything you just said made sense because we had lost Donovan, we had lost Austin, we lost our dad, then we lost Donovan. My blood pressure was through the roof.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing anything different than the other losses. I wasn't behaving in a manner that was different. But physically, my body responded immediately, and my blood pressure went through the roof, and I had to go see my physician that week and got put on blood pressure medication because it was dangerously high.
Yes. So we can experience something called broken heart syndrome, and it can absolutely show up as a heart attack. It can mimic a heart attack. We had a client a few years ago that went into the hospital, and by all intents and purposes, we were called, and everyone was called, and we were told she was having a heart attack. And in the end, she was diagnosed with broken heart syndrome. So it is not uncommon for grievers to absolutely experience the feeling of a heart attack. Chest pain, shortness of breath, increased blood pressure, feeling that you can't breathe, this overwhelming urge to lean over, the mimic and the effects of the heart attack are overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, like it feels like there's a weight in your chest.
Yeah. This can go on for a long period. It can happen multiple times, or it can just happen once. But definitely we feel the changes in our heart. Second, we have a lowered immunity at the time when we're grieving. Our bodies are typically exhausted because our sleep is out of whack. We have seen grievers that have caught cold after cold after cold. Poor poor little things. I just want to love you and hug you. You got a sinus infection. Then the next thing you know, you got the stomach flu. And then the next thing you know, you got something else. We work with grievers that come into our sessions and are sick time and time again because your immunity is just not able to fight off disease like it normally would.
Mm-hmm. I want to
So you
talk
got
about, yeah, that was, I was trying to think if I had a cold, but I didn't have a cold. So I don't have a cold story to relate. I want to talk about, because this was very profound for me both times, the feeling of not being able to swallow.
Yeah.
So and more specifically to food. So it was like there was a cork or some sort of blockage in my throat that I felt like I could not get food to pass.
Yeah.
And that was weird. It was weird because I've never had that experience before, but it was so vivid and it felt like there was something in my throat blocking food from passing.
I'm going to go back to immunity, but I want to jump on this train
Yeah.
with you. You can either feel the urge to want to eat all the time or the feeling that you can't eat at all. I can't even tell you how many times grievers come into us and they are like, I can't eat. I just can't eat. I can't get the food to go down. I'm not hungry. Well, what does everybody around them do? Plates of food.
Yeah.
Plates of food. You have to eat. And it goes along with that feed a cold, starve a fever. I mean, starve a cold, feed a fever. Who knows? But the other thing they should be feed a cold, starve a fever, and eat when you're grieving.
Number 3.
Number 3, and eat when you're grieving. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's okay for the griever to set, I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. Just please
Here's
stop.
the other thing. Here's what I always say, because people come up to me and they're like, she's not eating. She's not going to starve. Her body will not let her starve. She may only eat 2 or 3 crackers today, but trust me, her body will not let her starve. Your body knows when it's time, and it knows when to shut down because it needs to preserve the energy for other things. Your brain immediately goes to protecting you in a grieving experience, right? So it immediately goes, and the number one thing it tries to protect you from is danger. It also knows that it has to preserve energy so you can live to fight another day. And while it's preserving energy, it will go inward. It will go inward. Lowered immunity, your hormones can be out of whack, right? You can be constantly sick and not feeling well. You can feel tired a lot. You can feel really tired. And things like the high blood pressure, like you said, can show up that have never shown up before. Okay, number 3, or number 4, since we had it in food, body aches and pain. You can have body aches and pain.
Yeah.
It can show up not only as a heart pain, but you can feel it in your shoulders. You can feel it in your back. You can feel it in your knees. You can feel it in your thighs. Like you could have a strange part of your body just start hurting. Like, what is this? This has never bothered me before. It is not uncommon for the grief to not show up in your heart, but to show up in your back. Lower back pain, upper back pain, neck pain, stress, that stress, just touching that area, this feeling that you can't get away from it.
You know, if you look at studies like acupuncture, you know, things like that, things that people do, and I've seen it on shows. I've never participated in those myself, but there's a connection for, you know, emotions, and they'll say, well, this is where you hold this emotion, and this needle goes where you hold, you know, your stress. And I mean, if they can treat those parts with these little needles, I mean, it's all connected, you know, it's all one part. We're one big organism, and our feelings and our emotions are part of that, and they will manifest themselves physically if we're not normally expressive about them or are able to communicate. Sometimes we don't know how to communicate it, so it makes sense it's in your body and in your joints.
Oh yeah, for sure. And all of these symptoms we're talking about that happen in your body are either one of 2 things is going to happen. They're going to be short-lived or they're going to be prolonged. And either way, when we know they're coming, it just helps a little bit to understand that these things are coming. Okay, digestive issues. We can have digestive issues. We can suffer from constipation. We can suffer from diarrhea. We can
Mhm.
suffer from, we know a lot of times the side effects to anxiety and depression affects us in our stomach. We often think that our intellectual health, keeping our brain in check and making sure we have enough energy is the most important thing. But before we get to the brain is our stomach. Our stomach gives the information to the brain. So you can be throwing up and vomiting. You cannot be
Yeah.
able to keep food down. Just like you and I talked about not being able to even get the food down, you could have a common um, occurrence of not being able to keep the food down. It is not uncommon to feel heartburn or indigestion while you're having while you're actively going through grief.
Yeah. The stomach thing is big because it's um you're so wrapped up in your feelings and your thoughts, and your stomach is definitely affected because it's like there's a lot of times if you get stressed, just think on a normal non-grieving event, if you're stressed, your stomach reacts to that. So it's going to definitely participate in this grieving experience.
Yeah. Your sleep will change
Mm.
almost like a baby. Your sleep pattern will change 100%. And it shows up in a couple of different ways. Either you'll be sleeping all the time, and the minute everyone leaves the house, all you want to do is sleep. Sleep is a safe place. Sleep is a place where you don't have to think about it. Sleep is a place where you don't have to feel it. It is not uncommon for grievers to just want to get in the bed and pull the covers up over their head. And they will get up and do the things that they have to do to function, but then they go right back into pulling the covers up over their head.
Yes. Sleep is a definite respite from the pain. It was the only break I got from the broken heart and the brokenness, but it was very short lived because I couldn't stay asleep. So then
Right.
I'd be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd know that Lewis was up because I could tell in his breathing. And I would say, "Are you awake?" And he'd say, "Yep." And then we just lay there. We wouldn't talk. We just lay there in silence. Neither
So
one of us sleeping.
I'm sorry, sweetie. So the other part of that is insomnia.
Yeah.
So other than sleeping all the time, then you have the second part, which is insomnia, where you can't sleep at all because you're afraid of the dreams. You're afraid of what's going to come to you, what's going to come to me in my sleep, or I need to be awake, or the pain of our heart is keeping us from going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that can go either way. Okay. We call them avoiding techniques. Some people call them coping mechanisms or the things that I use to cope. Most of these things we're going to discuss right now are unhealthy coping mechanisms, but we use them to help us with all of the other things that just proceeded in this conversation, right?
Yep. We use them to numb and also to distract.
Yeah. So we can overdrink alcohol, we can overeat food, we can sleep, we can be smoking more. We can pick up cigarettes even though we haven't smoked in 13 years, right?
I did that. I did that when Austin died.
We can start biting our fingernails. We can start shopping, tremendous amount of shopping. We can start gossiping. We can start staying on the phone. We can start avoiding the pain that we're having. There's so many different ways that we can go into the grief that
We
we're
have,
experiencing.
I know in California, you guys, and in certain states, marijuana is legal. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can engage in something like that. It's not illegal, and it might not be something you've ever done, but you might go to some of those dispensaries and get edibles or get, pens or whatever. You might be doing that where it's completely out of character, but you're like, why not? I don't want to feel this. I'm gonna use something.
So one of the other feelings that we can experience in our body, we experience in our brain, and we absolutely experience in our heart is the feeling that we want to die. I want to die. I want to go be with my loved ones. I want it to end right now. There's no meaning for me to live. We hear this so many times, and we especially hear it so many times from women, and they follow it with, if it wasn't for my other kids, I would leave here. Not that they've come up with a plan, but this overwhelming feeling that you just can't go on, that you just can't take one more step is so common for grievers. And we're here to let you know that we both experienced it and that it is okay if you're experiencing that or have experienced it.
Yeah, because it's so heavy. it's so heavy. Your heart is so broken. The sadness is so overwhelming. I always say if the earth opened and swallowed me whole, I would not have fought. I would have just let it take me because I was in so much pain.
Yeah. Some of the things that we talked about also come in cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get your sleep back on a good pattern, or you can stop eating, for example, and then all of a sudden another part of the grief will show up in a different area, and then it can start the cycle of the grieving and experiencing in your body all over again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just laughing at you.
Well, we keep kind of tripping over each other, so I don't want to jump in, but I wanted to, now that we have a pause, I want to add in headaches, migraines.
Yeah.
You know, I have never been prone to migraines, but I have gotten some after Donovan died, and the eyeball, you know, the eyes hurting, the lights, sensitivity, all that. Migraines and really bad headaches are also something that can happen.
Have you ever heard of anyone experiencing hives?
Maybe.
Sorry.
Yes. Never had a hive in my life until Donovan died. And then next thing you know, they were popping up all over my face. And it was not fun because I'm vain. And I had to go out in public looking like Hitch when he ate the seafood.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. And that was a direct result of your broken heart and the pain in your heart, because you tell everyone all the time, grief is going to find a way out.
It will.
If you block it in and lock it in and act like it's not there, it is going to find a way out.
Yeah. And there's no, you can't control it, because the times that I was afflicted, I wasn't like in a super, you know, emotional turmoil. I wasn't ugly crying. I wasn't doing any of it. In my mind, I thought I was being very calm, but my body knew otherwise, because my heart was so burdened, and I wasn't telling you about it. I was talking a little bit to Lewis about it. And so my body said, fine, sister, we'll show you. Take this.
Let's talk about how to manage this.
Good.
So I was going to say the number one way is the first thing to do is get help, but that's not true. The first thing that you have to do is allow the pain in your heart. Know that that pain is in your heart, and recognize that you are having painful emotions. Allow it. Understand it's unique and individual. We repeat that all the time. How do we allow an emotion? What I really want you to do is try to name that emotion. Figure out what that emotion is. Oh, that's sadness. You can literally put your hand over your heart. And the second thing I want you to do is welcome it in. This sounds so strange, but it's through the resisting that a lot of these things happen to our body. It's because it's trying to figure a way out of our heart. So almost saying this, oh, this is sadness. Hello, sadness. And letting it know that you see it and you're acknowledging it. That's it. It's the simplest thing you can do. Grief sucks. Lean into that suck. Grief is jacked up. Lean into the jacked up.
The other thing that helps when you're trying to allow the feelings, for me, sometimes it was hard for me to pinpoint what it was exactly, because it was so much. Writing it out. Because when you write and you just start, I am so sad today. I miss him so much. You're going to get to layers, and then you can it'll start releasing that way. That is so helpful. Don't be afraid to sit down and write it. And then you can burn it, throw it in the trash, rip it up, whatever you need to do after. But that's a good process, a good way to process the emotions.
Yeah. Stick to a healthy routine. Try to stick to a normal sleep time as much as possible. Try to stick to a normal eating pattern as much as possible. Try to stick to 2 glasses of wine or 3 glasses of wine, whatever you call out that is right for you. Here's the other thing. We are not saying don't drink wine. We both love wine. We're not saying don't drink wine or whatever your drink of choice is. That's not what we're saying. What I am saying to you is this. If today I really miss Donovan, I'm going to go in the room and I'm going to cry it out as much as possible. Then I'm going to go enjoy my wine. I am not going to use the wine to avoid the pain. I'm going to do both. I'm going to process my grief and I'm going to drink the wine. So try to, as much as possible, do it in reverse order than we're normally would think we are doing.
Absolutely. That does make a big difference, because every time I would turn to the wine first, it would not end up well, because then when you are ugly crying through the wine, you're not able to communicate clearly because you're, under the influence. And so, you might start crying about Donovan, and then next thing you know, it was like, then when I was in the 3rd grade, and it's like nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to be there, even though, I did have people, and like you would sit on the phone with me, but it's hard for them to also give you the support that you need, because then the next day you might wake up and not remember any of the conversation. So you want to make sure you process it, talk about it, write it, do whatever you do first, and then go have your glass or two of wine.
And it's also important to keep talking. Keep talking. Keep talking to family and friends. Don't hold this in. And you might have 5 people in your family and not one of them are a safe person to talk to or a safe place. The person you need to talk to may be outside of your family, and be okay with that. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be the lady at church who experienced the loss of her husband, who understands and has the compassion. But just keep talking every single day. Keep talking about it.
And unfortunately, the person that you need to talk to is the person that you're missing.
Yeah.
The person that's gone.
Yeah.
If that's the case, Sharon and I are safe space. We are good listeners, and we can be here for you. So please reach out to us. We're here. We can do this with you.
Stop reading my mind, will you? It also goes to my next tip, which is get help.
Yeah.
Get help. Don't suffer alone. You do not have to suffer alone. The one thing that I know is when I was walking up the stairs to tell Erica, the stairs of Erica's apartment, walking up the stairs to tell her that Austin had died, the one thing that went through my head was, I don't know how to do this. I don't know anything about grief. Chances are you don't either.
Right.
Chances are you don't either. But Erica and I, for the last 14 years, have studied out the science of grief, grievers, and really what has happened to everyone, happens to everyone. So don't suffer alone. Even if you just want to call us and ask us a question, we are very open to answering that question. Your grief cannot be rushed, my friends. You cannot rush through this. It's going to take the time that it takes.
And you have to do the work. You have to do the work. It's going to take its time, but you have to help it along. No one else can fight this fight for you. And like we've said in other shows, you have to save yourself. No one is coming to save you.
Yeah.
So the choice is yours, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But with compassion, with love, with family, with support, you're gonna go through the tunnel. You're gonna go through this torturous pain, and you're gonna come up on the other side.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Thank you, friends.
Bye, friends. Thank you. Hi, friends. Erica Honore here with Healing Starts with the Heart. Sharon and I are so glad you joined us for another great episode of our podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We want to let you know, for more information, you can go to our website at healingstartswiththeheart.com. There you will find not only today's podcast, but all of our podcasts, along with our blogs, the information on the programs that we offer, and the Griever's Guide, which is something Sharon and I put together to document how we came to be your grief specialists. We also have a quiz to take to identify if you are truly grieving. And if you want to talk specifically with either Sharon or myself, you can schedule an appointment there. You will also find a place to join our private Facebook group at Hope, Heal, and Recover. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great day, friends.